Hey guys, welcome back to another baseball video. Once again, I'm Robin and this is Brandon. We're with ActivePT, and today we got another video for you for preventing injuries in throwers.
So we're going to focus on the phases of throwing, a few mechanical faults that can occur during that throwing process. So check it out. So the pitching sequence is broken up into 6 phases: the windup, the stride, the late cocking, the acceleration, deceleration, and follow through. We're going to break down the mechanics, and we're going to look at a couple different areas where you could potentially develop an injury due to faulty mechanics, and then we're going to show you some drills to improve that phase of the pitching sequence.
All right, so the first point that we're going to touch on today is the balance point. Now, just balance point alone is not going to necessarily cause injury in itself, but a bad balance point can lead to injuries down the chain. So the first thing I want to look at is getting in a good setup. The first points that we like to look at is, as we raise this leg up, how is our torso tilted, right? If we're tilted too far forward, right, we're going to have bad mechanics down the chain. And then same thing, if we come up to our balance point and we're leaning too far back, that's also going to lead to poor mechanics down the chain as well. Are there some other things that you tend to look for as well?
Yeah, so the balance is the biggest thing. So when he comes up, we also want to see that his hip is getting up flexed to about 90 or a little bit higher, because that's going to generate better force and momentum going forward. So when he's nice and balanced here, now the torque doesn't get transferred to his arm, it stays in his lower extremity of his core, and that's what will generate his velocity.
So a good drill that we can use to work on balance point is simply just getting into your balance point. And we can hold it for long periods of time. Coaches used to have pitchers do this for minutes at a time, just holding this same position. Now, to make it harder, what we can do is we can add in variations of taps. So we can tap behind us, tap in front of us, and tap in all different directions to make it a little bit more dynamic and a little bit harder to do. So go ahead and just start with balancing, then progress to something a little bit harder as it gets easier.
All right, so after the windup, we transition into the stride phase. So the first part of that stride phase is when our hands separate. A couple things that can go wrong when we separate our hands and our arm pass starts is we can stay underneath the ball. So I'll have Robin kind of demonstrate what that would look like. So here his hand is underneath the ball, or even a little bit off to the side. This is going to increase stress up through the elbow and the front side of the shoulder. You do that a number of times and you can start to get some irritation in those structures. So when you're working on hand on top of the ball, it should look like this. So here he's got the ball pointed towards second base, or even in between third and second as a righty. His fingers are nice on top of the ball, and he's getting into his foot contact position. So we can go through a very simple drill, and we'll show that next.
So our next drill, we can actually just carry on right from our balance drill to the hand separation drill. So again, pick out your line where your rubber wants to be, and then what you're going to do is get to our balance point, and we're going to stride and then look back, where's my hand, okay? Focusing on hands up, like Brandon said, getting that ball back towards second base as a right-hander, and then repeating, right? Getting to a balance point, right? Getting here, and stride. And again, these are things that coaches during our dry throwing days, we call them, we do these things over and over and over again, because we know that good mechanics means being a robot, right? Repeating things over and over and over again.
Okay, so there's a couple drills for your windup to improve your balance, and some hand path drills to get on top of the ball. Now we're going to get into the stride phase. The stride phase is important because our stride length can really affect our velocity. So what we want to focus on is getting a stride length that's about 80 to 90% of the pitcher's height. So we measured out Robin, and we put a box here that he can start to work on landing in with his stride. Again, the shorter the stride length, the less velocity you're going to be able to generate. So once he's got that dialed in, we want to talk about how we want his foot to contact the ground, which can affect stresses on our elbow and our shoulder if we don't have the appropriate mechanics when our foot hits the ground.
All right, so the next thing that we're going to touch on is piggying back off of what Brandon has been going over is our stride. So we know how far we should be striding. Now we're gonna see how far left, how far right, how that can lead to some injuries as well. So as a right-handed thrower, ideally what we wanna be is either straight on or just slightly closed. Slightly closed meaning more towards the third base side. What we really want to avoid is slightly open. That's going to increase stress at the elbow, increase stress at the shoulder. Really, we have to drag our arm through the windup, but we don't want to be too far closed. If we're too far closed when we land, then it's going to make it harder to get over the top, get over our hip. Again, increasing how hard our body has to work. So one great drill that we can do is we can use the same lines that we created with Brandon's drill to find how far off center we are. So what we can do this during our bullpen, we can do it really in the middle of the game. Sometimes I'll have guys draw a line right down the center of the mound to find how far off center they are. But at home, just use a piece of tape, we'll get into our windup, balance point, and then stride. And again, we want to be right on that line, maybe slightly closed as we come through.
So the 3 drills we've covered today can really be all rolled into one. So flat ground works just as good as a mound does. We've got our tape down here. So the first thing we covered was the wind up. So we've got Robin getting into his wind up, hitting that balance point. He can add toe taps to make it more challenging. And then he can transition into that arm separation, working on getting his hand on top of the ball. So you could do like 10 reps with the balance, then you could do 10 reps with the arm separation. And then finally, to put it all together, he's gonna make sure his stride is a good length, and he's gonna make sure his foot contact position is either towards home plate or a little bit towards third base for a righty. You can finish the drill. If you're using a towel, you can finish it and get a good throwing motion without having to throw a baseball.
All right, so that wraps up today's video. We went over the 6 phases of pitching today. We touched on a few mechanical faults that can lead to injury, and then also some drills to help reduce your injury risk, and then mechanical faults as well. We love talking pitching, we love talking baseball. We just covered a fraction of things today, so if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. Again, we love talking that stuff. We'll link our emails in today's presentation as well. Stay tuned for the next one.